June 2016. June 1st, 2016. The duality is still there. Being watched still feels like you're being watched even if you're not. Blonde lady at the pizza place did a hair flip. She was reading a pamphlet about keep in touch, which turns out to be some ministry. Her name was Judy. There is no opting out. It just becomes quiet surveillance. Or maybe you just can't handle them not being there. I don't know. It doesn't seem fun either way, and it doesn't stop the questions of being Peter. Focusing in Nedio's business is a good distraction, something I can do on instead of going mental by myself in the house. We're moving into screen printing in a few days once the resources arrive, something to do, much more economical time-wise than vinyl. The pieces take 1 to 2 hours to weed by hand, which is far too long to just make a single shirt. I'm not sure if they're still blinking, but you have to assume they're still there from past experience. Why would it change? This is such a weird situation. They want nothing to do with you, but they'll make you one of them. But you're a failure, but you're Peter, you're special. It just makes my head hurt. At least if I'm making shirts, I'm keeping my hands busy. Maybe it'll be fun after a while. I'm a cringeworthy guy. June 2nd, 2016. Feeling the disconnect pretty strongly today. Eyes feel funny. Not a great day. Taking the girls out to the butte to get out of the house for a while. Ella's complaining. She's nervous about being here for some reason. Won't sit still for very long. Paces. Not feeling nervous, just out of it. Looks like the shirts arrived. Why would you give an opt-out function when there was no real opt-in function, just the dawning realization that it was happening and the fallout from it? Why would Stephen King be at a restaurant on one's birthday, and why didn't you go say hi? Why couldn't you keep your mouth shut and pretend to be normal? You had finally gotten to a point in life where it was okay to be normal and you fucked it all up. Why do you keep doing that? There was no recovering from what you did. There was just no gain from it. It just broke. Why is it because it seemed like things were breaking around you, so you put things back what was given? What is the significance of you in any real sense? Why the C reference now? There are no do-overs. There isn't any forgiveness to be had. It's just what you said in the situation. My head hurts. I'm tired, and my head hurts. The eyes feel very, very large, and they start to feel when I got sick. Wonder what that is. You assume they cut the feed like you asked, but they just stopped responding like you asked them to. Now you're dealing with the pretense that you might actually be alone when you're not. When there's no chance you're actually alone at all. Why would they cancel the thing after putting all this work into it? Are you that big of a waste of a person? Yes, you are. Assholes. It's starting to rain. Maybe that'll make you feel better. The problem is that answers don't come. The visitors center is open today. First time seeing that. June 4th, 2016. We bought a clothing rack from G-Will today, the fancy metal 4-way on wheels type. Paid $8 for it. They usually go for over $150 new. We also made our first screening today. We had gone to the Goodwill bins looking for old picture frames to work with. I'd never made anything like that before, but Nedio's had made her own screen prints before, and we worked together to get the 2 frames we found converted. She thinks they're too small for shirts, but it was good to practice to get the workflow down. There was an IBM folder sitting in one of the bins. It was full of vacuum machinery diagrams, the pros and cons of various parts, and the ratings of how the pieces work together. It was fascinating. I wanted to take it home, but got distracted when Nedio's saw the rack. When we got home, I photographed the pieces, and I'll probably spend Sunday working them into printable usefulness. The watchers are back, but considering there's no change in them being gone for an amount of time after asking them to leave, it doesn't seem to matter. It's just going to be a game after all, and there isn't another move I can think of making. It was nice to feel alone for a while, but the perspective doesn't get less active. It just assumes that they went silent but didn't leave. It is what it is. I've been studying the animation styles of shows I like. I've started seeing scenes between Nedio's and I as the characters and thinking of drawing. The drawing tablet is broken, so it'll have to wait until October to get sorted. I think if I can get the animation as smooth as possible, I'll be happy with it. Definitely have to start writing down the conversations we've had in script form. Nedio's is worried it'll interfere with working on the business, but it's something I can become addicted to during that procedural and fun to see done. Plus, it's always wanted to be a voice actor, so I might as well do it if I can pretend to do silly voices. Thinking I'll call the cartoon Cat Tails. June 7th, 2016. Gut. The Cascade. Probability of action, ... n. Probability of action from set of actions happening times time action ends minus time action started times multiplier from action being emotionally positive or negative plus constant of was action completed yes or no pn plus p ... n. Percentage of action taken times the time it takes for the action to be taken gives you a positive integer to work with. If actions are assigned numerical values outright In a matrix, emotionally classifying actions as a positive or negative multiplier gives you a positive or negative sign to add or subtract in that movement in a sequence of actions. Adding in constant values of yes or no, also valued positively or negatively by a specific number, lets each action have a unique value, so that casts crests and valleys in a routine that can be mathematically recorded. Then each item's completed value has to be multiplied to give the chance of successful actions happening in a sequence one after the other. Pnx success yes no times p dot dot x success yes no, given if actions pn dot p dot dot n is successful, also useful for finding what chance pn is successful but p dot 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 n is not. Over time, averages can be added to the main equation to find out the timings that were generally successful, what's not, and when outliers occur, each having their own weight based off chances of those items completely dividing by the average completion rate, or for instance, timing how long it took that the time divided by the average time it takes, giving you a clearer rate of average times if those are added sequentially into the equation. You can break down each part of the equation down into specific items, the probabilities of an action happening, time it takes for the action to happen. If the action is completed, you don't need to include the beginnings of the next action in the Pn value because the P dot dot n value is the next action being taken. Every action has a numerical value. Determining how to weight the values numerically with the average of the action having taken in the past gives the equation the weighted ability to lead from one action to the next, so actions that happen more often are weighted slightly higher than those that have a failure function. You do that by adding the past actions taken to each other minus the actions broken divided by the total number of actions taken overall. It creates a positive value if completed correctly and heads towards 0 if the streak is broken. So it's likely a limit function. If it hits negative, it has become an action that rarely completes, though has headed towards 0 as the streak reverses from not happening to happening more often. So it must be consistently amended with each interaction type being renewed. Each social interaction has a net negative or positive effect to the user, and negative effects must slow the good or increase the intention of the bad, and must also be weighted, either for a determined period of time or for a set of actions until that influence is reversed or compounded by the next action. The social interaction types are negative positive, positive positive, positive negative, negative negative. So negative 1/2, 2/1, 1/2, negative 2/1, where the numerator number is the first person's emotional value at the end of the action, and the denominator number is the emotional value of the end of the second party at the end of the action. Then it becomes a system of linking possible movement matrices and the averages of the actions being taken, the actions that are taken, and the emotional value which affects the next item as a multiplicand of intent, plus the next action and its emotional value. Combine enough of those probabilities together and you get the probability of a person's day in one equation. To determine the value of another person's actions to a person's, you take the chance of the action happening, multiplying it by the emotional response of the action of the person, and then dividing the actions of their second person times their emotional response. With that, you should be able to add actions between the two people in sets and cancel out the gains and losses of the actions to determine the winner of said action and the effectiveness of said actions from either role. Being able to add and cancel out each other's actions gives you an interaction algorithm between two people, then gives you the ability to add to any number of people's interactions on a one-to-one basis, determining a larger movement involving more people. It becomes Pn1 plus Pn2 divided by Pn1 times Pn2, where Pn1 is person 1's action and Pn2 is person 2's action. Since only one action can be taken at a given time, but you need to add sets of actions for the same time period to determine the value of that time period as a whole. Adding in groups of actions of people over time of x2 minus x1 gives you a constant to work from. From there, you can build types of personalities based on their probabilities of routine, or to determine their known routines based on probabilities from past experience. Then you combine them at points of interaction, and from there you can extrapolate and cast the cascaded movement of the whole, knowing over time that the results will become more refined but increasingly complicated, and adding in known references points of actions, say getting on a bus at the bus stop or a terrorist attack, and the time frames of those people. you can build an algorithm that determines probabilities of future actions and events, and if enough location information is given at any time, the likely places for those interactions to take place. Something else that has to be given a numerical value is geographical location on the planet at a given time. You must also include weather. Places and geographical events that affect the emotional value of the person must also be accounted for. You must also add in the chances of the next event being surprising, dangerous, or mundane, like the car tire popping while on the freeway. Though actually, if all actions are given a value and all includes an emotional response variable to determine weight, then it's self-correcting, can be run as a probability of a constant if the constant is based around emotional value of the action therein. Death has a value because waking up intrinsically has a yes-no value, but it must be used to determine whether that life was a positive value or negative value overall, so that it cancels out the useless information and leaves a set of a person's actions as a numerical value. It lets you add and subtract people's lives properly from macro schematics. The cascade must be measurable from a single person's single action to any number of people and their combined actions once the types of people's movements are determined. Shopping routines, eating routines, dopamine routines, any routine of actions that can be measured in this P.N manner is useful information. Once these systems are in place, you can effectively determine the probability of any future action given at any known time or place given enough information sets between people, effectively telling the future. Once a computer has been set up to do just that, I can show you how to move something backwards in time. The cascade is a potential movement forward based on the known movement backwards. Invert it and you get the movement forward, self-correcting to any possibility. I need to study the shape of dark matter and how it moves backwards in time relative to the force of light or gravity's vector. Picture it like current from a wire heading down the wire as gravity revolves around the wire itself. Determining the spin of the material will let us build the computer to use it eventually. The problem is that it might moves in a dimension directly at a right angle to ours in time, essentially moving outside of time itself. It will appear to cause time to move forward based on its movement, but will later be determined to be moved outside of time itself based on the physical ideas of an anti-time particle. So a new time type of thought on time manipulation has to be developed, something not impossible to do. The trick is to figure out if the actions of people are independent or dependent probabilities, but every action is dependent based on the preceding action's length and emotional weight, but every interaction between two people is an independent event that causes dependent events to happen to both parties afterwards. But those independent events are dependent on the location, geographically, and emotionally of the people involved. So it's a set of nested functions, interlaced between independent functions that are themselves contained within a dependent function. If you include outside forces like rain, but even weather is dependent on gravitational and air and water movement, so at most it's 3 layers. Dependent actions forcing interactions that appear independent but are dependent themselves, causing dependent conditional states between 2 or more people. So write the rules for probability down. There are no independent events outside of a set of events that can happen in a type of routine or another in a given order, because their outcomes are all dependent based on their length, emotional toll, and their ability to affect the next action in the routine set. So finding the probability of a user type is as simple as writing down their routine types for a day, the item's length, their expected emotional weight, and which is also a probability, not a constant. Will it make this person happy? Yes/no. How often? And then determining what type of probability that the next action taken is such and such. If it's pleasant or not, and adding them in to find the probability of a successful day, then it's just finding the probabilities of any type of day from most successful, either emotionally timely or number of actions completed, to the least successful versions of the 3. There will be a correlation between wasted time and less productive methods, and likely one between emotional success for a routine versus how much time is left. You break time down into 2 types, work and rest. You break emotions down to happy and sad, and define all emotion subtypes to the grander type for rougher estimations. As either work or rest increases sadness eventually for either, and there is a point of interaction combinations where the person is the most successful for the 3 units. A low down time, high work time, high happiness. But the goal isn't just to determine the person's emotional state. The goal is to determine the probabilities of determining one full day and any other types of day the person could have broken down into time segments, because action and emotions are both functions of time, and being able to correlate any number of users' interactions in a time frame is needed in order to read the movement of the cascade properly and to actually figure out the movement of probabilities of the future. So determine the functions of an action for time t1 minus t2 minus t1 with probability x minus probability of x for duration of t2 minus t1. Add an emotional value probabilities for the action, the next action is dependent on either direction, because if you're sad, the next action may take longer than if you were happy, or the opposite may be true. Then determine the value for the next action and find the probabilities of those actions happening at all, and do that for the length of actions that take 1 day, and you have the probability of a unit's action type in scenario 1. But from there, you can also determine if every action has the opposite effect, finding the probabilities of any other possible action given to them. Adding in other items of consideration are those equations allow, i.e. Alice is sad, Alice stops working in her spreadsheet, Alice opens her drawer, Alice considers her Kit Kat, Alice opens Kit Kat, Alice eats Kit Kat, Alice either feels better or guilty for eating the junk food. Then you have to add in the vectors of bodily reactions as well. Emotional is mental, but sugar rushes are physical and affect the probabilities of future actions as well. So as concurrent vectors to map for a single action, emotional toll and physical toll, both of which affect the next action. You're either stressing or relaxing physically. Your heart rate is either going up or down, which affects blood pressure, which affects the blood around the brain, which affects your ability to think in a certain way. So to determine the probability of any action, you must determine its probability of happening at all, its emotional likelihood, and its physical action on the body, because they are both directly affect the next action's success rate. Once you map those possible reactions out and their chances of happening, you can build a model of potential human movement. Then it's breaking those movements into directions with regards to other humans. You're either physically moving away from someone or towards them, and emotional responses, even though two parties are standing still, one will feel like the other is moving towards or away from their physical space. The idea of personal space invokes this feeling. So it becomes probability of is this person pressing in or moving from the comfort of the other person. Again, the positive negative, negative positive, and negative rules still apply. That's the kind of computer program you want to build, really. One that correlates the action types and gives you them enough information of various substructures. It could learn the whole of humanity's movements and be used to predict future movements. While personal types are the same, no two geographies are the same, which is beneficial in making each interaction as unique value, useful for all sorts of things. Okay, well, I'm taking a break, so I might as well do some ads. This is my first one, so bear with me. So, if you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you, so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. That's pretty cool. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. And all you have to do is download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Please visit anchor.fm/Divergent Mind to leave a message so that I may get back to you. Thank you. Have a nice day. So Anchor is asking me to ask you to support me financially. I would ask that you go to my Patreon to do that, which is patreon.com/divergentmind. It means you can either become a monthly subscriber at a different tier of $1 to $3 to $5. I'm not looking for a lot. I'm not asking for a lot. I'm not asking for anything. This is going to go to the end of my podcast. I don't like it when podcasts straight up ask you for money when I'm doing okay. Well, I'm not doing okay. I'm surviving now to the point that I can make this. I would love to be able to make improvements to this by, say, So basically, I'm running off an iPad, and I would like to improve it by getting different things that would make it better. Maybe some headphones that monitor output, or a better mic. Though the mic I got was from JWife, so I might not even use the better mic. You know what I mean? It's all about whatever I need at the time, but really it's just to get healthy again. Because I'm currently over 300 pounds and I don't want to die that young. I would really like to be able to afford some vegetables so I can go back to my vegetarian diet. Because being this big sucks. And I'm happy to sit in a chair all day, but I really got to walk my butt off, literally. So that's what the money would be for. It would be for healthy food, because I can't afford it. I can afford ramen and pasta and rice and beans, but I can't live on carbs, because that's how you get this big on antipsychotics. Junk food and carbs, which is just cheap and plentiful around me. So I would like to leave my house and just lose some weight. And to do that, I would like to go to the store and buy some vegetables, please. But you don't have to do anything. I'm not asking you to. I'm not begging. I'll figure it out on my own. Much pleasure, Jay. So I just want to thank my first favorite, DW. Thank you for joining me, and I hope many more follow. But you were the first, and I wanted you to know that. So thank you very, very much.
Hey people, take a listen to the Divergent Mind podcast. You get both insight into living with a serious mental illness and get to listen to a lovely tale about a journey cute little animals need to take. Don't miss out, and remember, divergent minds don't need to think alike.